We live in very unusual times, a time when in order for us to show compassion to our fellow men, most of us are called upon to keep our distance from them rather than to approach them. It is a time when our normal way of life has been severely changed, as if it was turned upside down. We are not alone in this. Because of the threat of this dreaded disease we know as COVID-19, the whole world is in disarray. As German Chancellor Angela Merkel said in her address to her people, along with the rest of the world, the Philippine government has been trying to address this crisis through measures that are unprecedented. Merkel in her address to her people, the coronavirus is currently dramatically changing our lives, our standing of normality, of public life, of social togetherness. All this is being tested as never before. Millions of you cannot go to your work. Your children cannot go to school or to kindergarten. Theaters, cinemas, and stores are closed. And what is perhaps the hardest, we all miss the social encounters that usually are natural. The Chancellor was referring to the situation of her own country, Germany. But her words ring as true to us as if she was talking to Filipinos. Along with the rest of the world, the Philippine government has been trying to address this crisis through measures that are unprecedented. Never before has the government required nearly all the citizens of Luzon to stay in their homes for 24 hours, allowing them to live only to buy their basic necessities. It is a step we were reluctant to take, but the circumstances and the experience of nations worldwide convinced us that we had no other choice. Truly, we live in highly unusual times, but today, we secretaries and senior officials of the executive branch now come before you, honorable members of Congress, believing that in a time of crisis, the rule of law should prevail. We come before you with the conviction that in the most challenging of times, our democratic institutions are up to the challenge and will prevail. We therefore approach the distinguished members of Congress, the elected legislators of our people, to ask for a law that will enable the President and the executive branch the legal authority to address this crisis in a manner that is free from the restrictions which, while beneficial during normal times, might prove disadvantageous during such an unusual time as this. In so doing, we do not desire to overstep the bounds of Constitution, which remains firmly in place even in times of emergency. In each of the powers we are requesting the Congress to grant the President, our objective is to hasten the delivery of services to those who are suffering or are suspected of having COVID-19, to halt its spread, and to bring relief to the rest of our countrymen who are now constrained to stay in their homes and give up for a time their ability to earn a daily living. Thus, among the legal authorities we are asking from you today is the ability to purchase equipment for our health workers on the front lines in the most expeditious way possible, without being restricted by existing procurement laws. For our laws have provisions for emergency procurement, even these are subject to procedures that are no longer appropriate to the situation we are facing today. We also ask for authority to ensure that our local governments will fall in line with the national policy for dealing with this crisis. We believe that under existing laws they are already have that legal obligation to comply with standards that the national government has set regarding community quarantine. But the confusion sowed by the local government units who are acting on their own, preventing the entry of people and cargo in their territories when the national government has already exempted them from the quarantine restriction, is making life for the entire country more difficult than it already is. We thus appeal to Congress to enable the national government to swiftly deal with such wayward officials. We also appeal to Congress to enable the President to move deadlines and timelines for the filing of taxes and other requirements, as well as the payment of benefits such as mid-year and year-end bonuses. The question of extending deadline for income tax filing was an issue the past few weeks, and we have dealt with it by adjusting the deadline so as not to further burden our people who are on community quarantine. But if Congress will grant us this clear authority, such issues would be addressed without any delay. We also ask Congress to enable the President to more freely reallocate the budget in the General Appropriations Act and use the funds for addressing COVID-19. And now I come to the requested power that has been stirring some controversy since yesterday, and I believe unjustifiably so, the power to take over private establishments. Even as originally worded, the intent of the proposal was simply to grant to government a standby power. It is a power which do not consider necessary to be exercised at all times, because the establishments that are needed to deal with this crisis have, to their credit, been mostly cooperating with government. But we only desire such a power to be legislated because the virus we are up against is so unpredictable and can spread rapidly in a community. The power to take over is intended merely as a standby power in the event the crisis reaches its worst. When our most critical institutions are nearing a total shutdown and government is left with no choice but to take over these establishments. We are requesting it this early because we do not know how quickly our Congress can convene if and when we reach that point. Thus, for the benefit of our people, we opted to include it in our requested authorities. But as I said, this government believes that our democratic way of life will prevail through this crisis. As a testament to that conviction, we listen to the advice of our legislators and the opinions of our countrymen and have adjusted our proposal by narrowing it down and subjecting it to safeguards in addition to what we originally proposed. We hope our modified proposal would now merit our legislators' approval and our people's wholehearted consent. You may be assured that we only aim to equip your government with all the legal authorities necessary so that we can, at the shortest time, bring our life as a nation back to normalcy. Our legislators would note that the powers we are requested today have their own expiry date, as they would last only as long as COVID-19 crisis would last. And Congress itself would be able to closely monitor the actions of the executive through oversight committee to be created by the proposed law. We assure Congress and our countrymen that this administration has no intent to abuse the powers we are asking of you today. When this administration declared martial law in Mindanao, there were similar speculations that we were about to do away with our democratic institutions. But what happened? Martial law in Mindanao came and went peacefully without the abuses prevalent in the martial law of 1970s and early 80s. In fact, the two cannot even be compared. It would be like comparing a rotten apple to a freshly picked orange. The President and his administration has no intention at all to use these powers to its own advantage, but only for our people's advantage. Your administration simply desires to be equipped with all the legal authorities necessary for us to serve our people during this crisis in the most expeditious way and to bring an end to this national order at the soonest possible time, all the while remaining true to our democratic institutions, abiding by the rule of law, and upholding the supremacy of the Constitution. We thus request the members of Congress to grant these legal authorities to the national government. Through this legislation and your continued support, magbayanihan tayo and let us all heal as one. God bless us all. May I submit